Okay, you sent us some source material that is seriously rocking the boat in the world of online reselling.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting stuff.
We're diving into a paper here that takes a really hard look at how resellers use data on platforms like, eBay,
Right.
specifically focusing on the sell-through rate, the STR, and that all-important solds information you check on the app.
And evaluating items before you buy them is, it's absolutely fundamental to success in reselling, right?
Totally.
And for years, the go-to strategy, the common wisdom, has been to lean really heavily on eBay's solds filter.
Uh-huh.
And the STR, you calculate from that data.
Hmm.
The idea is, it tells you how to price something and how quickly it's likely to sell.
It makes total sense on the surface, doesn't it? Like, look at what sold, see what percentage moved. It feels like solid ground.
It does.
But this paper you shared, it's throwing a major wrench in that. It's basically saying, hold up, you might be reading this data all wrong.
That's exactly our mission for this deep dive. We're going to unpack the arguments in this paper that will directly challenge that widely accepted belief.
Okay.
It offers a fundamentally different perspective on what the eBay STR actually represents and points out some really significant, maybe even, uncomfortable pitfalls of putting all your faith in sold.
And it gets into some surprising territory too, right? Even touching on the quirks of our own brains, like cognitive biases and how they might be shaping the way we see this data.
Absolutely. Confirmation bias, things like that.
Okay, get ready to question some things you thought you know. All right, let's unpack this. This paper comes right out of the gate with some pretty strong claims.
It does.
What's the very first big argument it makes against the common approach?
So the paper leads off by addressing what it claims eBay's calculated STR really measures.
Okay.
Its position is that this number, it's a measurement of eBay's success as a whole marketplace.
eBay's success.
Yeah, not a reflection of an individual seller's specific likelihood of selling a particular item.
Whoa. Wait a minute. So that number, I see that percentage, it's not telling me my potential chance of selling my item.
That's the paper's central claim on this point. It uses an analogy to drive home.
Okay.
It's like walking into a huge Walmart store, seeing they sell a lot of hammers at, say, X% STR across their entire chain.
Right.
And thinking, okay, if I decide to sell hammers, I'll automatically achieve that same success rate just because I'm also selling hammers.
But that's ridiculous. I'm a tiny individual seller, not Walmart. My situation is totally different.
Precisely. And that's the underlying issue the source identifies. Relying on the platform-wide STR treats all listings and products as if they were, uniformly identical.
Which they're not.
But you and I know that's just not reality.
Yeah.
Listings vary wildly in quality. Some items never sell, and even identical items. They sell at different speeds, different prices. It depends on the seller, the listing.
My photos, my description, my price point, my seller history, how often I list, all of that is unique to me.
Exactly.
It's not the same as someone else listing the exact same item down the road.
Exactly. And the paper offers a simple proof point for why it believes the STR is for the platform, not the individual.
What's that?
Think about it. Everyone who searches for the same item and looks at the numbers gets the exact same calculated STR percentage.
Yeah, that's true.
So the paper poses the question. If that number was truly your individual STR, your potential rate, wouldn't it have to be different for literally every single seller?
Yeah.
Based on all those variables you just mentioned, your photos, your history.
Right. It would have to be personalized.
The fact that it's identical for everyone is, the paper argues, because it's aggregating data for eBay as a whole for that item or category. It's not predicting your specific outcome.
That's a really crucial distinction. I hadn't quite thought about it like that. It's not my forecast. It's more like eBay's report card for that category.
That's a good way to put it.
Okay, that flips things on their head a bit. What's the paper's second big argument after this one?
So, building on that, the paper introduces a concept it terms the reseller's fallacy.
Reseller's fallacy, okay.
It says this is directly based on the classic gambler's fallacy.
Ah, the gambler's fallacy.
Yeah.
Okay, I know that one. That's where you see like a roulette wheel land on red 10 times in a row.
Right.
And you mistakenly think black is now due and more likely to hit next. But in reality, each spin is totally independent. The odds are still basically 50-50, ignoring the green slots for a second.
You got it. The source defines the gambler's fallacy as that incorrect belief that a past series of independent random events somehow influences the probability of the next event.
Okay.
The paper then coins reseller's fallacy to describe the mistaken expectation a seller has that a sale made by another seller will somehow influence the probability of selling their own physically distinct product.
Oh, I see. So just because I see like 5 of these widgets sold this week by different sellers, I think, great, mine is more likely to sell soon too.
That's precisely the fallacy the source highlights. It argues this assumption is flawed because, despite appearances, each individual purchase of a specific item on the platform is essentially a separate, random event.
Random.
From the perspective of another seller's distinct item, yes. Why random? Because, like we were saying, there are countless variations at play.
Right, the condition, the photos.
The physical condition of the item, the quality of your photos and listing description, your standing as a seller, the specific buyer's unique needs and timing. Even how eBay's search algorithm might be treating your listing that day. There are just too many variables.
So my item selling isn't like causally linked to someone else's recent sale of a similar item?
Not in a predictable, probabilistic way you can reliably use to value your item or forecast its sale time, according to this paper. The key takeaway here is that you can't really base the likelihood of your specific item selling on a previous random event, which is what someone else's sale essentially is when viewed from your perspective.
Okay.
Instead, the focus needs to be on, well, current, actionable market information related to items currently available. What's happening now?
That feels kind of counterintuitive, you know? But when you list out all those variables, it's hard to argue with the logic.
Yeah.
Okay, this is getting fascinating. What's the third piece of this paper's argument against the traditional Sol's STR reliance?
The third main point dives into how a well-known cognitive bias, confirmation bias, helps reinforce this belief in solds and STR.
Oh, confirmation bias.
Even when the evidence might not fully support it.
Right, that's where you tend to look for or interpret or even just remember information in a way that confirms what you already believe.
Exactly.
Often without even realizing you're doing it.
Exactly. The source defines it as that tendency to seek or interpret information that confirms existing beliefs while unintentionally ignoring contradictory information.
Right.
And since evaluating items for your business is so important, this bias can be particularly strong here.
So how does this actually play out with the STR?
Well, the paper observes that sellers often calculate the STR before they even buy an item.
Uh-huh.
They feel good about this step,
Yeah.
proud of their research.
Yeah, you feel like you've done your homework.
Right. But the source notes, very few actually go back later to track if that estimated STR actually held true for their specific item after it was listed.
Oh, I know I've done that. You see a 70% STR, you buy the item feeling confident, list it, and then, well, you're already on to the next sourcing trip or the next batch of listings.
Exactly.
You don't always circle back to see if that 70% item sold within the expected time frame, whatever that was supposed to be.
Right. And the bias kicks in when an item does sell relatively quickly.
Mm-hmm.
The seller thinks, see, my STR research worked. This confirms my method.
Yeah. Validation.
But if that item sits and sits, the source says sellers often ignore or downplay the STR they initially calculated. Instead, they'll maybe blame external factors. Oh, the algorithm changed, or it's just the time of year. Buyers aren't looking for this right now. Maybe even my pictures weren't perfect.
It's easier to find those external excuses than to question the initial data or the method, isn't it?
It really is. It's a comfortable loop, like you said.
Yeah.
When it works, the data was good. When it doesn't, something else went wrong.
Yeah.
The paper even mentions how this belief gets reinforced across the whole reselling universe.
What do you mean?
Like, go on social media, watch YouTube videos, read blogs. You'll find countless discussions, tutorials, success stories that all start with, check the solds.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. It's everywhere.
This collective affirmation, the source suggests, creates this powerful echo chamber that supports the belief in solds and the app's calculated STR.
Uh-huh.
And that makes it even harder for anyone to question it.
That's where it gets really interesting. It becomes this kind of embedded culture, this piece of common wisdom that's rarely challenged from within, even if maybe individual experiences sometimes contradict it.
Precisely.
Okay, so beyond these 3 core arguments, the paper then goes into more specific details about the limitations of relying just on solds, doesn't it?
It really drills down into the practical problems. First off, solds data gives you a purely historical snapshot.
Right, what already happened.
It tells you what happened, yeah, but not necessarily what's happening now. In fast-moving markets or niches, yesterday's price or sale rate might be completely irrelevant today.
So you're potentially making decisions based on the past, not the present market your actual buyer is seeing right now.
Exactly. Second, The source argues that relying heavily on solds encourages a race-to-the-bottom mentality in pricing.
Oh, yeah.
Sellers see an item sold for $25, so they list theirs for $24, then the next person lists for $23, and so on.
Yeah, you see that constantly. Just trying to undercut the last guy by a buck or two.
It drives prices down based on those historical data points. Third, the paper points out that the solds data isn't always, let's say, clean.
What does that mean?
It includes things like, well, fake sales, returns, and cancellations. The infamous example cited in the source is seeing like $10,000 Corningware show up in solds.
Right. I've definitely scrolled through solds and seen those totally bizarre outlier numbers and wondered what was going on. You just kind of assume it's a glitch or something, but the paper says it's actually in the data pool you're looking at.
Right. And if you're just glancing or maybe calculating an average based on that, those outliers can still subtly skew your perception of the real market value.
Okay. What else?
Fourth, the solds data set is often significantly smaller than the number of currently listed items for a given search. So you're often working with a smaller pool of information when you only look at solds.
And more data points are usually better for understanding a market, assuming they're relevant data points.
Generally, yes.
Yeah.
Fifth, and perhaps less obvious, using solds often carries this sort of implied assumption that your item will sell within that measurement period, which is usually 90 days on the app.
Right.
But the data itself doesn't guarantee that time frame for your specific item. It's just a look back.
And the absolute biggest bombshell from the paper, for me anyway, was what it said about listing age within the solds data.
Yes. This is so crucial and often overlooked. The solds data does not tell you how long a specific listing was actually active before it sold.
Right.
An item that shows up in your sold in the last 90-day search. Maybe it was listed last week.
Or maybe.
Maybe it was listed 900 days ago.
Wow. So you see the sold stamp, but it gives you absolutely zero information about how quickly that item actually moved off the virtual shelf.
None whatsoever.
Was it hours or was it years? You just don't know from that number alone.
Precisely. That calculated STR percentage gives you no way to understand the expected selling time in, like, days or weeks.
Okay.
And this goes right back to the core argument. The paper reiterates that the STR percentage derived from solds cannot be reliably applied to your individual sales or items.
Why again?
Because it fundamentally assumes all the variables, the products themselves, the quality of the listings, the seller's access and reputation are equal.
Which they clearly aren't.
Which they demonstrably are not.
And that links back to the paper's "but I'm part of eBay" example, right? To show that flawed logic.
Yes, exactly. It illustrates the flawed reasoning pretty well. The paper uses the example of an item with, say, a platform-wide 60% CETR.
Okay.
Which means, by definition, there's a 40% failure to sell rate for items in that category during that period.
Right. 60 sold, 40 didn't.
So if every seller looks at that 60% ATR and believes their individual item is definitely going to fall into that 60% success group.
Which you kind of naturally do, right? You're optimistic.
Of course. But if everyone thinks that, then logically nobody believes they are in the 40% fail group. And if no one believes they're in the 40% fail group, well, then the fail rate would have to be 0%, right?
Yeah.
Which would mean the STR should be 100%.
Which is obviously absurd because we all know tons of items don't sell or take forever to sell.
Exactly. That little thought experiment just highlights the flaw in taking an aggregated platform-wide metric and trying to apply it directly to your single individual listing to predict its specific outcome.
Okay. Now, the common counter-argument you hear to all of this, especially against looking at currently listed data, is, well, anybody can list anything at any price. That data is useless. It's just wishful thinking. The paper tackles that head on, doesn't it?
It does. The source counters this by first pointing out that, hey, outrageously priced listings exist in both the currently listed and the solds data sets.
Oh,
You remember the $10,000 Corningware example?
Yeah.
That showed up in solds. So crazy prices aren't exclusively a currently listed problem.
Okay, fair enough. It's not like solds is some magical realm of only perfectly rational pricing.
Not at all. And the paper asks a very simple but kind of thought-provoking question.
That's it.
If the prices in currently listed are so untrustworthy because they're supposedly all over the place, how does anything actually sell at all on eBay? Is it just pure chance or luck every single time someone makes a purchase?
That does make you pause. It implies there must be some underlying market pressure or reality guiding pricing, even if there are those weird outliers.
That's exactly the paper's observation. The reality is, despite those outliers, the general range of prices you see in currently listed items often looks remarkably similar to what you find in solds.
Okay.
Market pressure, competition. It tends to push most sellers towards a rational price range where things actually have a chance of selling.
Right. People aren't generally lining up to pay 10 grand for a casserole dish, whether it's currently listed or marked as sold last week.
Exactly. And the pupper highlights a key advantage of using currently listed data.
Which is?
It shows you the pricing landscape against your current competition.
Ah, right now.
This is what buyers are seeing right now when they're deciding what to buy and at what price. They're comparing your active listing to other active listings.
Not necessarily comparing it to something that sold last month or 2 months ago.
Precisely. So it gives you a view of the live battlefield, let's say, not just a historical summary of past battles.
Okay, so if relying just on solds and the basic calculated STR has all these potential issues and currently listed data actually has value, what does the paper suggest is a better way forward? Does it offer a solution?
Well, the source doesn't necessarily present, like, a definitive single answer handed down on stone tablets.
Right.
But it clearly points towards the type of solution needed. It suggests using something that can provide a trustworthy price range combined with real information about the timing of the sale.
Price and timing. Getting back to addressing that blind spot you mentioned earlier with solds.
Exactly. The key data points the source says are necessary are detailed information on current listings, not just their price, but crucially, their age.
How long have they been sitting there?
Exactly. How long have these active listings been sitting there?
Yeah.
This data is needed both for individual listings and also aggregated as a group.
So I need to know the asking price, sure, but also, like, on average, how long items like this have been listed before they typically sell? Or even better, maybe see the age of individual active listings that are my competition.
Precisely. The source mentions using metrics like the median and average age of active listings in a category to get a handle on typical selling times.
Okay.
And having access to the age of each individual listing. That would allow a seller to really laser in, as the source puts it, on that critical timing aspect.
Yeah.
In a way that just looking at Sol's data simply doesn't allow.
That would provide a much more realistic picture of the market velocity, wouldn't it? Rather than just seeing a sold stamp with absolutely no date context attached.
It directly addresses that major limitation of only using Sol's data, the complete lack of information about how long an item actually took to sell.
Wow. Okay. This has been a genuinely thought-provoking deep dive into really just one document. But it's challenging a fundamental practice that, so many resellers live by.
It really is a core practice for many.
So just to recap, we've pulled apart why the paper argues that eBay's platform-wide STR isn't reliably applicable to you as an individual seller. We've explored how cognitive biases like the reseller's fallacy and confirmation bias can kind of keep us locked into certain data interpretations.
Right, without us even realizing it sometimes.
We highlighted the specific practical limitations of relying solely on sold data, the historical nature, the race to the bottom, the dirty data, the missing age info.
Well, what's the point?
And considered the paper's view on the potential value of currently listed data, especially when you add that critical piece, the listing age.
Yeah, our aim here was really just to give you that shortcut, to get you well-informed quickly about the nuances and the challenges presented by this paper regarding item valuation straight from the source material you provided.
Right. So let's maybe end with a question for you, the listener, to mull over, inspired by this deep dive. Given what we've discussed today about how data is presented versus how our brains might interpret it, especially, under the influence of bias, how might rethinking the data you primarily rely on, maybe moving beyond just solds and the basic calculated STR, to potentially include currently listed prices and that crucial timing information like listing age, how might that change how you value items or even how you approach the entire reselling marketplace?
That's a big question.
And maybe even bigger picture. What other common assumptions about data, perhaps in other areas of your life or your business, might be worth pausing to take a really critical second look at?